Hey, this is Kyle Stowers, and you're listening to Fish on First.
Fish on First live on the Foul Territory Network, presented by Jet Ski Rentals of South Florida. A more intimate crowd. I don't think anybody wants to talk about this series, but me and Eli are going to do it. We're talking Marlins series sweep against the Tigers. They lose all 3 games. They go into Detroit and are swept out by a team that came in 5-9. Their ace struggles today. The back end of the rotation, it was a struggle, and the offense, if you want to talk about struggles, not great. About as bad as you could be in this series for the Marlins offensively. And I think it's early in the season, but this has got to be considered low point so far after Sandy coming off such an exciting outing, had the chance to go another complete game. Of course, we know what happened there. And then, of course, today allows up 7 earned runs against the Tigers offense, and the Marlins get Skuballed at the same time. So a struggle for sure in this series. Eli, will do it the same way as we've been doing it. Go game by game. We expect this maybe to be a little bit of a shorter stream because we have a smaller crowd with all the competition that we have. Nobody wants to talk about this, understandably, but we're going to do it because we're here every series. Anyways, Sandy Alcantara today against the Tigers, just not Sandy. This was about as rough as we've seen him this year, I think I would say. He goes up against an offense that came in struggling. We covered that last time. He does last 6 innings, but 10 hits, 7 earned runs, only 4 strikeouts, 3 home runs, and 2 walks. Just didn't seem to have all of his pitches today. I think the slider was, a catalyst for why he struggled so bad. Just didn't have it. But your thoughts on Sandy today after coming off of that great outing? He struggled in this one.
Yeah, the home runs is what really jumps out, because even last year, I was surprised actually to look this up. Last year, he did not have any starts last year where he allowed 3 homers in the game. He maxed out at 2. He obviously had some terrible outings last year at various points, but none quite like this in terms of the homers. And I was like, at the beginning, I had kind of a mixed opinion where the first inning got extended by a couple of well-placed ground balls, but then a 3-run shot by Dylan Dingler on this changeup that kind of floated up in the zone. And it's one of those pitches where it was an 0-2 pitch as well, where he was that close to just getting out of the inning without any damage. And then he kind of left it up. And it was the kind of pitch that when you have a changeup like that stays up in the zone, it's almost just like a really shitty sinker where it moves the exact same way, but it's 5, 6, 7 miles per hour slower than the pitch that you'd want. So maybe you get away with that pitch. Maybe it's a long foul ball if it's an actual fastball, but that goes back to bite him. The other homers, there was the one that Kevin McGonigal, his first home run of his career, and that one was right down the middle, as center cut as a fastball could possibly be, that he crushed for his first home run. That was no surprise. I know that was a guy that got a lot of attention coming into the series, and deservedly so, and he did about as well as any hitter on the Tiger side over the course of the 3 games. Then the last one was a really good piece of hitting by Kerry Carpenter on this sweeper that was way down and in, that was nowhere close to a strike. And that's one of those where you really tip your hat to him. So the final line was a little bit deceiving because the 10 hits, a bunch of them came at the very end, where I think if you stop the game in the 4th inning, he'd only allowed 3 total runs. I think even into the 5th inning. And then at the end, things piled up. I think one thing, I got several comments about it that I think is fair criticism. The Marlins let him throw more pitches in this game than they did in his previous start, when he was taken out, of course, a couple outs shy of a Maddox. So I get the point that people are coming at from that. Like, well, why the hell did you stick with him? You were willing to stick with him this long, even though the game was already out of hand, and you weren't willing to let him go a little bit further in that other one. As we touched on, it wasn't so much that they were, it was more complicated than that, all things considered. But yeah, overall, 15 hard hit balls. I'm just seeing this now. That's a number you rarely ever see in a single start, allowing 15 hard hit balls just for one pitcher. So he was in the zone and they were on him, on his various pitch types. And this was a Tigers team that I think we talked about coming into this series. They were kind of due to get back on track. They got off to a very slow start. There was a lot of urgency on their part to turn it around. And I think Sandy just got a team at the wrong time that was kind of due to flip the switch a little bit. That's kind of how I would sum it up.
Yeah, for sure. And I think had to be in the zone because missing some of the secondaries. Sweeper didn't look great today. Slider didn't look good today. Just rough. But these are going to happen. I mean, you can't go near complete game every time. This offense was going to get going at some time, and unfortunately, it had to happen against the Marlins. So on the other side, they get Tarik Skubal, who had a no hitter through almost 4 or 5 innings. I think he had a no hitter through. I guess we can talk about one bright part of the Marlins offense in this series and in this game, and that's Otto Lopez. Otto Lopez has looked, I think, a lot better. Started the season a little bit slow, but has really gotten it going lately. He's got a bit of a hit streak going, hit a home run today. So Otto Lopez, like I said, after a little bit of a slow start, he looks a lot better, actually. So I think a good series for him. One of the few offensive highlights in this series was he was a lot of the Marlins offense in this series, Otto Lopez.
Yeah, it's gone a little bit under the radar, and I think kind of in some ways I understand it because a lot of his production this year, I'd say, has been done in low leverage situations. He hasn't really been right in the middle of flipping those games. He doesn't have an Owen Kaysen style walk-off hit. He doesn't have like individual games where he really was on it every single plate appearance. He's just been consistently good overall offensively in a year where it's been noticeable some of the defensive mistakes he's been making. He leads his team in errors, and even outside of the errors themselves, there have been some other surprisingly sloppy plays for a guy that we all held in really high regard on that side of the ball. But meanwhile, like, he's hitting in the middle of this lineup every single day, and I think that's going to continue against both lefties and righties moving forward. He is the highest OPS on the entire team. I think he's very slightly in second place in terms of WRC plus, but he's right there. A 922 OPS overall, that second home run of the season coming today. He was a guy that, if you looked at the under the hood numbers from last year, like, the power was there and it wasn't always translating into quite as many extra base hits as you would think. So he was a classic candidate coming into this year, where I thought just doing exactly what he did last year would lead to more run production. And yeah, to this point, it has so far with him. So now that that's kind of taken care of, now that he's one of the few guys in this lineup that's a true everyday player, as they consider it. They play Marcy every day, they play X every day, and they play Otto every day. And outside of that, a lot of platoons going on. That his job security is about as good as it could be. And if he really polishes it up on the defensive side, then this is going to be the best year of his career so far.
Hits in 7 of 8 games, 2 home runs in his last 10 games. So just solid. And you take that, especially from a middle infielder at a premium position. So I don't think we could have asked for too terribly much more outside of like maybe a couple misplays or botch plays at shortstop this year. I think he's been just fine for most of the year after a slight slow start and maybe the first series of the year. This has been really good. And like Eli said, not many people talking about it. So definitely wanted to give him a shout out because there wasn't that much more to talk about offensively for the Marlins in this series. As me and Eli were just talking about, they only put 8 runners in scoring position the entire series. They never led in a game in this series. Trailed, as Eli was pointing out, for just about as long as possible with the early leads that the Tigers put up. I mean, Eli, what else can the Marlins do offensively? I mean, we can point to lineup construction. You can point to the fact that Austin Slater started today, but Casey was in there. I mean, we saw Casey the first 2 games of the series. This was just a really big names and not so well-known names like Kiter Montero in the first game. Yeah. Can you pinpoint why they struggled so badly with this Tigers team offensively?
It's hard to say because really the swing and miss wasn't a big problem. Even today, only 8 strikeouts as a team on a day when Skubal starts. You'll usually chalk that up as a good day, all things considered. And yeah, that hasn't been a particularly big issue. Overall, there has been a lack of over the fence power that, aside from the Otto home run in this game, they didn't really come particularly close at all to those type of producing in that department. They're still waiting for, obviously, Kyle Stowers to get back, and they're waiting for guys like Augustin Ramirez to hit more fly balls the way that he should be. So that's still a missing dimension, where if this is a team that has a lot of success putting the ball in play, but if they're not really barreling the ball, then that leads to quite a bit of quick outs, all things considered. So over the course of the few games in the series, there were just a lot of quick outs because of their willingness to swing and their ability to their inability to really square it up. I do think we should talk a little bit about Jacob Marcy, because he was somebody that everybody had circled coming into the series. He's a very popular series MVP pick on our prediction time segment because of it was a homecoming for him as being a Michigan native, and he was pretty much a zero in the series. He had a triple late in this game on Sunday and ended up scoring once it was completely out of hand. And outside of that, he struck out more than anybody else on the team. In terms of that, he's like, you look at, it's kind of a mixed signal when you look deeper in terms of what he's doing, but the bottom line results kind of are what they are. He's hitting 145 so far this season, a sub 500 OPS. They're continuing to play him every single day, including today against a lefty like Skubal. So I kind of wanted to get your thoughts on where we are with Marcy at this point, where it hasn't been a single home run yet. And I mean, even outside of that, he had that 4 stolen base game not that long ago. And other than that, a guy that was their best offensive player the last couple of months of this year has been, any way you slice it, one of their worst ones so far this year.
Yeah, I thought we'd reached a turning point with that game where, he stole the 4 bases, and I think what did he have, like 1 or 2 hits in that game? And then this series, he just this was, I think, probably the worst that we've seen him. You can say that this so far this year, not hitting the ball hard, really at all, except for the 1 triple, as you noted. He did, I think, in one of his at-bats, almost, and almost counts for nothing, almost hit a home run to right field, but of course it went foul because he was just early. But other than that, I just really didn't see quality of contact, which we were seeing early in the year. We were just waiting for the ball to fall, wait for it to fall. He's hitting the ball hard, just got to wait for it to fall. In this series, not so much, I would say. This series, he kind of just wasn't there at all. Average exit velo drops. He's now at 88.1 average exit velocity, so it's coming down, which you don't want to see. Barrel rate of 12%, which is not great. So his savant page is slowly going back to the blue. Other than the great patience that we know that he has, he's starting to not get great wood on the ball. In this series, at least, he didn't. Of course, there's plenty of time for him to turn it around, which I expect that he will. But you can't say the guy hasn't had a chance to kind of break out of the funk that he went into. And we were hoping that it really happened in this series. He was really looked primed to, and then just didn't really do it against any of the 3 starters that they faced, or the Tigers bullpen. So, I mean, I'm definitely not giving up on Jacob Marcy with what he did last year. I think he kind of proved that, over a longer sample, he'll be just fine. But it's not time to worry yet, but this was definitely a step back, just because the exit velos just weren't there. The hard hit balls weren't really there. He was just really, really quiet in this series. So it doesn't get easier for the Marlins. We'll cover that in a second as they go to Atlanta. But, man, hopefully, that quality of contact comes back against the Braves. And, hopefully this was just maybe, just an off series for him. But we'll see what happens with him. But definitely didn't like to see the average exit velos come down.
Got an interesting point from Brian in the chat about the cold weather. They did play a couple cold games in New York and now a couple ones here in Detroit. It looked like today was beautiful, though, today on the series finale, but the previous 2, not so much. So if it comforts anybody, I think it'll be a long period of time until they play another cold weather game again, because after Atlanta, then they're back at home, and then things kind of warm up all the way until September. So I guess there's one silver lining, one excuse that they won't be able to make going forward, you won't think?
Yeah, for sure. Atlanta, and then come back home after that too, inside. So they get a break. So that won't be a caveat for them, depending what hopefully they do a lot better than this series in warmer Atlanta. We'll see. I guess we can cover Jansen Junk Eli in the second game of the series yesterday. More Jansen Junkie, I guess we can describe it as. After that 7.1 inning outing that he had the last time out, which was really good. This game, just a lot more about his average self, I guess, in this game. I mean, can't really fault him for much. It was 5 innings. He pitched into the 5th. 5 hits, 5 earned, 5 hits, 5 runs, 4 earned, 2 walks, 4 strikeouts, and a home run. So not really knocking the guy here. I think that the 7.1 inning start, you were not going to expect that every time out. So I wasn't really too surprised that he didn't do that and was more of a league average starter in this case. So I don't know if you have anything to add there, but just kind of more the Jansen Junk than we could probably expect going forward. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. In fact, the first thing when I pulled up the box score to just refresh myself, the thing that jumped out, a little silver lining of the series, is after Junk, the first guy out of the pen was John King. And this is quietly 6 appearances for him as a Marlin, all of them scoreless, all of them hitless as well, with John King, who was somewhat of an overlooked free agent signing, the second lefty in this bullpen, or anyway, maybe some people would say the first lefty in this bullpen ahead of Andrew Nardi. So that's kind of what jumped out with me. With Junk, I'll go back to him quickly just to say that his last start was uncharacteristic. It was solid, but it was something that I think may have inflated expectations. He went 7 1/3 innings, and that was the longest start of his entire career. We're not going to see very many of those deep starts from him, I don't think. Even though he throws a lot of strikes ordinarily, and even though he can be efficient with his pitches, he's somebody that as you go multiple times through a lineup, he just gets hit a lot harder. And yeah, in this particular game, he was hit hard early on, and he actually settled down these last couple innings after allowing the big home run to Riley Green in the 3rd inning. So yeah, he's been a mixed bag overall. He's been a pretty quintessential number 5 starter to this point in the season, when you average it all out. And that is to say that on days he starts, usually the bullpen is going to have a pretty big impact overall. And so this game was a little bit closer than the Marlins may have been able to eke it out in the later innings. But yeah, so John, that's the first thing that just popped in my mind. I don't think we've said the name John King all that much on these streams to this point, but that's a guy that's going to be pretty important for them moving forward if they're going to be competitive, because so far he's been close. He's been an absolute best case scenario, especially for somebody that they got at a very modest price in free agency.
Yeah, former basically lefty specialist, which of course now doesn't exist anymore in baseball because you have to face 3 batters. So, one of my questions to Clay when they first got him this spring was, do you think he can stand up against righties? And he said, yeah, and he's proving that pretty well. So, I mean, to go all these scoreless in a row, it's a small sample, but it's good to see him be effective against both sides. So, pretty cool to get him at, like you said, a modest price. And the fact that he's been pretty effective out of the bullpen against both sides is good to see. I guess I could point out one more thing in this game that happened. I don't know if we expected to talk about this guy, but I'm glad that we are, because Connor Norby has a 5-game hit streak. He doubled in this game. He doubled in the first game as well. So I think he had a home run. Last game against Cincinnati, right? I think he had a home run. So is this the start of Connor Norby maybe getting going offensively, Eli? I know a lot of people have kind of been down on him since his struggles last year and a slow start to the year this year, but it's been good lately, I guess we can say, with some extra base hits.
It's funny that you brought him up, because I was thinking about actually tweeting about this subject in kind of a negative light, because the overall numbers this year are like best case scenario. The overall numbers are a 127 WRC plus to this point. He's walking way more than he has in the past. He's striking out way less than he has in the past. But he's somebody that he's not passing the eye test for me at this point, where I think in a small sample that almost gets more weight than it would ordinarily. There was that home run, and there has been some occasional hard contact, but actually the hard contact in general has kind of been few and far between, all things considered, including today. He got a hit on Sunday as well. That was kind of a lucky one. And the numbers themselves, in a small sample, you get wacky stuff like this, where his numbers are inflated quite a bit by the fact that he's been hit by 4 pitches already this season. He's tied for the major league lead in hit by pitches. There were 3 right at the beginning of the year, and then there was another one today. And that is not an insignificant impact on somebody's on-base percentage, and therefore like their overall value offensively is when that happens. I don't think that's going to be sustainable. There are a few guys in Marlins history, you point to like Derek Dietrich as guys that on a consistent basis that was almost a skill that they had, but Norby isn't necessarily in that category. It's been just a lot of randomness helping him out in that regard. And there's still just a lot of non-competitive swings where, even though to this point, it's not, I mean, he's been being able to overcome it in a lot of scenarios. There are still way too many of these breaking balls that are 6 inches off the plate. Maybe they feel like 6 feet, but these non-competitive breaking balls that he's still chasing outside the zone, getting himself into bad counts, that's still a common thing that we've seen from him. And even it's still. I'm not confident about the power being what we thought it was originally when they acquired him. He went on that tear back in 2024 with extra base hits, where everything it seemed like was 105, 108, 110 miles per hour off the bat, and this year there's only been a couple of those overall. So I'm still struggling to see how this is going to sustain itself over the course of the season. Once the hit by pitches go away, I still think he's a guy that's going to struggle to get on base, and I still think he's a guy that's not going to hit a ton of home runs. I think maybe it's average power if everything goes right. But yeah, I'm still skeptical of him. They are giving him a ton of playing time, and he's going to continue to receive quite a bit of playing time. Like the way that I was looking at it until Griffin Conine got hurt, I was starting to wonder, is there a scenario where Norby, once Stowers gets back, once all these guys stay healthy, is there a scenario where Norby is facing some pressure to stay on the roster, but now that pressure has been totally alleviated? So I guess the easiest way to sum it up is, regardless of how, wishy-washy I am on him, it does seem like he's going to have a very long leash to continue to play almost every day. So yeah, we're going to have a lot more clarity soon, I guess, as these sample sizes expand.
Yeah, 33rd percentile in hard hit rate, bat speed in the 28th percentile, both of which are well below league average. His expected batting average as well is in the 18th percentile. So it's just not really there in terms of hard contact. I mean, he did get the home run. Yes, there is that, but other than that, he's fast. So, I mean, he can turn basically whatever into extra bases. So, I mean, just quality of contact, not really there. He's been fortunate, I think, to have some of these extra base hits. I think both of those doubles were probably pretty fortunate for him. But just need to see more in terms of quality of contact and less in terms of him just being, coming out on the right side of the luck equation. But, everything goes into it at the end of the day. Right now, he has a 127 Dory RC plus, so the Marlins will take it, especially with how their offense has struggled. But all things considered, I think over a larger sample, things will even out. Unless he can find some more bat speed and some more hard contact. I think if everything else stays the same, then maybe looking at us, sub-league average bat. We can quickly hit Chris Paddock before the break, Eli. I thought pretty good in the start. He keeps trending upward. I really think that we hit bad luck in the first outing. That second outing where he came in relief, luck probably evened out. And then this outing, I thought pretty good. Just offense didn't do anything for him. But this start, not too terribly bad at all in the first game of this series. I think this was probably the best that he's looked, honestly, in my opinion. 6 innings, 7 hits, 2 earned runs, 1 walk, 4 strikeouts, and a home run. So again, I think that he's used all of his pitches in the start. It's a wide arsenal. He's a smart dude. He speaks well. You can kind of tell speaking to him that he has that kind of high pitcher's IQ. And I think things are trending upward for this pitcher, and it's good to see. The Marlins spent a lot of money on him. It was a questionable price tag. I questioned it as well, but so far he's proven a lot of people wrong because he looks pretty good.
Yeah, I'll continue to be a little bit lower on him than you are. But in this one, I do have to admit, I was impressed by how he settled down, because in those early innings, it did look like it could get out of hand relatively quickly. I'm going to try to familiarize myself in terms of exactly how he got out of it and settled things down, because it did look, I think it was in that second inning when he had that first run that I believe the bases were loaded after that run came in, and like the Tigers were that close to really breaking it open, and then he put up a couple zeros after that. So then there was that one other run in the fifth, but being able to make it through 6 overall, that is something where the comparisons between Paddock and Cal Quantrill are going to be inevitable, because similar circumstances that they were signed, similar contract, similar purpose, it seemed like. But the thing with Quantrill is that the Marlins would not let him ever go deep into games, even when things were going perfectly for him. And with Paddock, this doesn't seem like much, but just making it through 6 innings, I saw last year that Quantrill, this kind of blew my mind, that Quantrill had 1 start all of last season where he reached 6 innings, and Paddock has already matched that here in his 3rd outing. Who knows what exactly his previous one would have looked like if that was under normal circumstances. For people that don't remember, his game against the Yankees, he came out of the pen after Pete Fairbanks and under really strange conditions and didn't work particularly deep, even though he did allow no earned runs in that one. Yeah. So with him, it was a lot of hard contact allowed overall, but few that really got you scared about in terms of extra bases. So it was 10 hard hit balls against him, but just that one walk. And that is going to be an important separator for him moving forward, is just continuing to relentlessly pound the zone and be confident in his diverse pitch mix to keep guys off balance. So yeah, as long as he's doing that, like it's at this very moment, the overall numbers look kind of comparable to 2025, but I'm at least in the camp where I think as the season plays out, he's going to be significantly better than he was last year. I think this is a good fit with this organization. And I guess on the other side of the break, we should at least touch on the possibility of what exactly a rotation change might look like for this team and who necessarily is in that conversation in terms of getting bumped out and who's really on their heels in terms of pushing for another chance. Because even though that wasn't the reason why they lost this series, I know that is top of mind for a lot of people as the season progresses. We'll take a moment now to shout out our sponsors at Jet Ski Rentals of South Florida. They are the sponsor of all the podcasts that we do here at Fish on First, but let me make sure I get the full background there for them. There we go. So with 6 jet ski locations and over 120 boats, there's something for every style and every budget. Ride jet skis right in front of the downtown skyline and Ferris wheel, or book your own private boat, starting as low as $300 with the captain included. Bring your drinks, your friends, and enjoy the water your way. The boat is completely yours for the time that you reserve it. They're reservation-based only, so to book, call 305-990-2192 or check them out online at sfjetskirentals.com. Make sure to use our promo code. It is Fish on First, all one word. That gets you 10% off your next booking at Jet Ski Rentals of South Florida. Again, 305-990-2192 or online at sfjetskirentals.com. So the reason
Robbie
why
Snelling flipping it into cruise control in his last start for the Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp yesterday. 12 strikeouts. Comes within one of a career high and not that many innings at all. Comes within one of a career high in strikeouts, which he posted last year. This guy's ready right now. So talking about what a future or not too distant future Marlins rotation looks like, because this guy is ready to be here tomorrow. So is this as simple as Jansen to the bullpen? We just talked about Junk and how he can be beneficial out of the bullpen in the current state. If the rest of this rotation is hopefully healthy like they are, is it as easy as that? Or what do the Marlins do when Snelling is ready to be called? They've saved the year of control. There's really nothing else holding the Marlins back from making this move. So Eli, is it as easy as that? Is it just Junk to the pen and Snelling into the rotation? Or what do we think this looks like in the not too distant future for the rotation?
Just to confirm with people, as you brought up right there, we have passed that deadline in terms of Marlins now having club control of him for this season and 6 more beyond that, all the way through 2032. And the only exception to that would be if Snelling rallies in a shortened season to win Rookie of the Year or finish second. Those guys get credited with a full year of service. But barring that, and that'd be a good problem to have for the Marlins if he was instantly so valuable that he was in that conversation, that they've passed that one step when it comes to ensuring that they're going to have most of his prime years already under their club control. So it should be, at this point, it really is a baseball decision when it comes to that. And yeah, to me, when we were having this kind of conversation entering the season, well, we were thinking once after Snelling got reassigned to the minors that it seemed very plausible that Junk would be pushed to the bullpen and that Braxton Garrett at that moment, maybe we'll get into him in a moment, that Braxton would claim that final rotation spot. And I think you got to revive that same conversation with both of those guys at the moment, considering how well that they're pitching already. And the fact that Junk kind of has, as I laid out, he's fine. He's, when you need a fifth starter, he is somebody that can be better than replacement level, I think, moving forward, but somebody that doesn't move the needle for you. And Snelling, if nothing else, he's a guy that has that upside to move the needle for you because of his ability to miss bats. And generally, for what we saw most of last year, his ability to also have plus command, and something that's kind of Jansen Juck's biggest asset. And Snelling has that in spades as well, from what we saw last season. So in this particular outing, he walked 4 in 5 innings. And I think maybe that is the one thing that the Marlins may want to just be very stubborn about, is making sure that he has some sort of extended stretch of really pounding the zone. And that might be ultimately what pushes them to bring him up in the first place. He was given, as far as we know, he was given an opportunity to make the rotation out of camp and had those mixed results. So if it really shouldn't take all that long for him to instill the faith that they need in him to give him this spot and give him that long runway to establish himself. So yeah, I'll go back to the idea that even with that, the extra year club control in hand already, I think that the one thing they'll be looking for is for him to just flip all the way back into the mode he was for the second half of last year, in terms of being a guy that not only misses bats, but is also just so precise with his location. So they're probably really staring at those walks and making sure that if they go down for a period of just a couple of starts moving forward, that might be the last thing that he needs to secure his call up.
With both of those guys, Eli, with Snelling and Braxton, who was really good today, had a no-hitter for a while in Jacksonville. He was solid today as well. Obviously, we know he doesn't have anything left to prove in the minors either. He's just kind of there for depth reasons, I guess, at the current time, and to be built back up a little bit. So, I mean, either one of those guys, they're both lefties. So the Marlins have already proven they don't care kind of to go with an all-righty rotation. They don't really care. And the stats would really tell you that, they don't really miss having a lefty in the rotation. They give up a 606 OPS to lefties, which is not high at all. It's actually almost sub 600. So, it's not that they really miss it, but do you think that having a lefty in the rotation kind of helps out the righties, throwing a team off by mixing a lefty in for more than 2 times through the order? Do you think that would benefit maybe the righties in the rotation to throw an anchor in and give a team a different look from a different side for more than 2 times a game?
I think the main benefit actually is just convincing the other team not to play some of their better left-handed hitters, because that is something exactly. Flipping it around, that's a point of frustration, of course, with Marlins fans at this point of the season. The fact that no matter what the name is, if there is an L at the front of their handedness in a matchup, it means that they're not going to play Owen Casey, and they're probably not going to play Liam Hicks. And even when Kyle Stowers gets back, there are going to be days where they don't play Stowers simply because of being at a platoon disadvantage. A lot of other teams follow that same philosophy, as frustrating as it might be, especially when the results in the Marlins case, the results have been pretty obvious, where when they put out these lineups that are so heavily right-handed that the talent level just isn't particularly good. And the results are significantly worse than they were otherwise. Other teams subscribe to that same philosophy. They're going to sit, with few exceptions, a lot of their really good left-handed hitters in those matchups. I'm just thinking about, there are exceptions, of course. If you're in the NL East, for example, a Kyle Schwarber, he's going to play against all these lefties, and Bryce Harper is going to Matt Olson of the Braves, who they're about to face in this series. He's going to play every day, even if he's facing a lefty. He has that pretty notable Iron Man streak. But there are a few exceptions. Once you get below that star tier, then a lot of those left-handed hitters, whether it's the right move or not, it is a move that these teams will at least sit them for the start of the game and then bring them in the later innings if necessary, if there's a high leverage moment for them to make an impact. So I think that is one of those benefits, and a reason why, all things being equal, if it really is the talent is pretty comparable, and if you're able to retain both those players in the Marlins case with Junk, if they can't send him down to the minors, that's one thing to really hammer home, is that he's out of minor league options. And I think that is why he had that inside track to maintain his rotation spot. But also we've seen in a few occasions last year that he just took very well to being in this long man role, or even you could even call it a piggyback role, where he's almost like a second starter on some days if the normal starter doesn't go particularly deep. That if he's comfortable with that role, and we think that in both Snelling and Garrett's case that the talent is comparable, if not better, with those guys, then I think that is why, as the season plays out, I'd like to see those guys get a whole lot of starts moving forward.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the thing with Braxton too is we've talked about this before, so I won't go too terribly long on it. But if they are going to look to move him, which I would think that he will be should be some kind of a trade chip with what they have coming, starting pitching wise, Snelling and White and others. You want to see him in the big leagues. You want to see him getting big league time to boost trade value so you can maximize the return. So on both of those guys, Snelling and Braxton. I mean, Braxton can throw all the no-hit innings he wants in AAA. I don't think it's going to matter nearly as much as innings in the major leagues. So you have to get both of those guys here. Snelling because he's ready and Braxton because you want to boost value. So moves, I think, are coming. And I would say probably in the not too distant future, as we alluded to. Junk to the pen is definitely going to be one of them, I would believe. And then at least Braxton back in some capacity in the majors. So we'll see. I mean, I would expect those moves. Eli, what do you think? I mean, roster moves when? When can we expect something like that to happen with either Snelling, Braxton, or both?
With Snelling, I do think it's contingent on him just stringing together a couple outings where the walks aren't a factor. And I think that's what might be all it takes. The other wrinkle with Snelling is that he's not on the 40-man roster and Braxton is, which is why I think Braxton might actually be the one that gets that opportunity first. I mean, the easy way, or I should the somewhat of a cheat code would be if they happen to have some sort of rain out situation and there's a doubleheader that comes up and then they could line up one of those guys to come up at that moment. But with it doesn't seem like that's going to be in the foreseeable future, that this is really going to just be about a baseball decision when the time comes. And with Junk, I mean, to his credit, he wasn't terrible in his previous outing. So I think fair or not, you'd like to see the team be proactive in these regards. You don't want them to wait until they lose a game because of bad pitching, or you lose multiple games because of that to make a move. I think that's just realistically how this team operates. And so I wouldn't encourage people to root against Junk, but I think the results are going to have to not only be in favor of those potential replacements, but be going in the wrong direction for Junk in order for that to happen. So yeah, I wouldn't say there's anything imminent, at least one more turn, but I think likely multiple more turns of the rotation. So looking at either late at the end of this month or the start of May is when, Junk would really have to overachieve in that regard and to kind of stave that off. And it's interesting that we're focusing so much on Junk and not on Max Meyer, a guy that we've been pretty skeptical of as a starter for an extended period of time. And, in this sample, he's been a little bit better than Junk, but the questions still persist about the kind of length that he can provide even when he's totally on his game. I wouldn't say he's a guy that, because he has minor league options, it is still conceivable that if he slumps, they have that option of sending him down and simply replacing him with one of those other guys that we've mentioned if they feel that he's better moving forward. So yeah, they're still going to want to see a larger sample of not only Junk, but I think even Max, because he has those options, because there's that scenario where he comes back up as an amazing force out of the bullpen in the kind of role that we envisioned for so long. Still a couple more weeks, if I had to guess, before we see a change in either of those situations.
Yeah, I think I would agree. I think the leash is pretty long on Meyer too. I mean, they've been pretty clear that they're going to do all they can to let that guy succeed. And he's been better, like you said. I mean, I don't think perfect, but he's been better. So we'll see him coming up in the next series, I believe, right, Eli, against the Atlanta Braves. We'll break into this for the last 10, 15 minutes of the show. Marlins back in Atlanta to face the Braves for the first time this season. Oh, boy, it doesn't get easier, Eli, does it? So the Marlins will go into Atlanta for 3 games before finally getting a day off. Here's your matchups on the screen. The Marlins will have Yuri Perez, Max Meyer, and then expecting Mr. Chris Paddock again against Grant Holmes, Reynaldo Lopez, and Bryce Elder. Again, we'll see Max here. I want to hit on that first just because it's a good way to segue, Eli. How does he build off of the last start? I mean, I really liked the last start. We hit it last show that he didn't really have to lean on the slider. I really, really like that, which when he has to lean on that pitch is kind of when he doesn't have command of his secondaries, which everything else is a secondary. The slider is his primary. So I really like that he had all of his pitches last start. Is it as simple as that for Meyer, or what else goes into him taking the next step to proving that he can continue as a starter?
I think generally speaking, you're on it with that. The only thing that has, why it's a little bit more nuanced is because I think of the very best starts that he's had in his big league career. And the one that jumps out most of all was almost exactly a year ago against the Reds when he had those 14 strikeouts. And that was a game where he leaned as much on his slider as ever. Without even looking up, I know that was more than half of the pitches he threw. That was almost accountable for almost every single one of those strikeouts that he had in that performance. That the ceiling for him is going to come on particular days when the slider is just unhittable, when he's able to throw it exactly where he wants it, or he's able to paint corners with it to get ahead in the count. And then he's able to just throw it a couple inches lower after that and get a chase out of the zone and get a miss. On his very best days, it is going to come full circle, and it's going to go back to just relying on that one plus pitch that he has. But in terms of actually holding on to this spot, in terms of being higher on the depth chart compared to somebody like a Jansen Junk that we talked about, he's going to have to make more of his arsenal work for him. They're going to have to be more complimentary in that regard with each of his pitches. And still going back to the start he had against the Yankees a couple starts ago, the one that I was at, like some of my favorite pitches from him in that outing were not his slider. Like I remember this awesome sinker that he threw. Actually, I think it was a changeup that he threw like inside to Ben Rice in a 3-2 count that was just like perfectly placed and nasty enough that he was able to freeze him on it. And there was like a sweeper as well that I thought like he really well located. He backdoored it against a lefty hitter in a way that got another strikeout for him. Like you see flashes from his other pitches as well that he'll have to in order for them to be good weapons for him, you got to actually use them consistently. Otherwise, you just lose the feel for them. So, I think this still goes back to, I like the usage that he had in his previous start. Give those pitches another chance at the beginning of the game. And then, as the game progresses and you find out that something's not working, then that's when you make adjustments, which then from that aspect, it goes back to that whole idea that these pitch calling decisions are still coming from the dugout. And one of the many questions that people still have about that is, how exactly does that strategy account for what's going on in that particular game? But I think at the very least, you got to give some credit to the coaching staff in terms of making those calls in the first place. Like I think maybe if those decisions weren't being provided to him, then maybe he would be leaning more on his slider. And the reason why he's diversifying a little bit is because those instructions are coming straight from the coaching staff itself. They're the ones that are kind of encouraging him to use his whole arsenal.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we can't argue that it's looked a lot better. So hopefully he takes the next step forward, including all of his pitches. I mean, that slider is so good, and yes, will allow him to have the floor of a pretty good bullpen pitcher, I believe, but he's trending in the right direction. So I think the next step forward kind of just builds off of what he did last start and having all of his pitches kind of like we talked about. So, and yeah, I think I agree with you that, calling pitches from the dugout this is one guy that I think it's really benefited, allowing him to mix properly. So I like what he's shown so far this year, just kind of trending upward. The Braves, man, they're always a pain. we know that. It's been another slow start for Acuna, but they've gotten super hot starts from guys like Drake Baldwin, Matt Olson. I mean, this team just doesn't really quit when it comes to the names. If one guy's not doing too great, another guy's going to clean it up for him. It's a Luke Williams reunion series, so Kevin will be happy about that. But there's always something that stands out about this team. They're definitely back this year, Eli. Just talk to me real quick about the Braves.
You mentioned the guy that was top of mind for me, which is Drake Baldwin, the reigning rookie of the year, because going back to last year, one of the big difference makers, I would say, when it came down to it at the end, voting for the award, is this monster series he had against the Marlins in Atlanta in August. It was a 5-game series, if I remember correctly, because of a rainout that was added to the series, and the Braves destroyed the Marlins in that course of that series. Baldwin drove in 10 runs by himself in a single series. Has to be pretty close to a record, I would say, for a single player against the Marlins in a single series last year. Yeah, he single-handedly made the difference. I know in at least one of those games, that was kind of the series where people got a little too excited about the Marlins maybe creeping back into the playoff race, and that kind of put them back in their place for the time being mainly because of his performance. He was the best player over the course of that series, and the production's been amazing this year. It's totally backed up by the quality of contact that he's making. You see that it's not only hitting over 300 and slugging 600, the expected slugging is 600. That's about as good as you could possibly get. Quality of contact. He's a really complete hitter. And then last year, his playing time was kind of limited just because he was sharing the roster with Sean Murphy. They were splitting their responsibilities at the catcher position. And then he was also splitting time at the DH position with Marcelo Ozuna. Ozuna is gone. Sean Murphy is still hurt. And that means that they're kind of without any hesitation. Baldwin is in the game almost every single day. If he's not catching, he's almost always DHing. It's very similar to the setup the Marlins have with Augustin Ramirez, except for the fact that Baldwin to this point in his career is showing himself to be a more complete hitter and a better defensive catcher as well. I guess one thing that jumped out to me when I pulled up these StatCast measurables on them was I was surprised how slow a start Mike Yastrzemski got off to. There was that rumor like early in last offseason that the Marlins were in the mix for Yastrzemski in free agency, and that really confused people. And then as it turned out, we play out the offseason, they end up trading for Casey and another left-handed hitting outfielder. So I think there may have been some actual like legitimacy to that interest in Yastrzemski, but he got a bigger contract than most people thought. And to this point in the season, he's not hitting very much. His role is pretty big on this team because Jerks and Profar got suspended for the entire year. And they've had some injuries as well that have kind of forced Yastrzemski to carry a pretty big load, even deep into his mid-30s at this point. And then, yeah, other than that, you mentioned with Acuna that no matter how pedestrian the numbers look at this point in the season, he destroys the Marlins every single time. One of the true Mount Rushmore of Marlins killers at this point. It started in his rookie year, and it really has not let up very much at all. He always finds the way to impact those games. Offensively, he's just a really special player. And yeah, so I think he's going to be a force to be reckoned with in this series, as he always is.
And just the expected stats, like his stat line obviously is not justified because, man, those expected stats, that bright red is the ball's going to fall for him eventually. I hope it's not against the Marlins, but with history being what it is, as you just alluded to, it probably will be. The Marlins also get 3 pitchers in this series. Just really quickly before we go to prediction time, Eli, they get 3 pitchers in this series with ERAs of under 3 that are almost under 2 or better. All 3 of these guys have just been really good so far this year. Of course, it's a small sample, but all 3 guys that the Marlins will face in this series just don't allow or haven't allowed much damage whatsoever. Grant Holmes, Reynaldo Lopez, Bryce Elder, all 3 righties. So we will see Casey, Marcy, all the lefties. We'll see them all in this series. I don't think the Marlins, even with all their lefty power, it's going to be tough. On paper, you would think with the lefties that they have, they match up pretty well against 3 righties, but on the road in Atlanta against these 3 guys, I don't think it's as good as it looks. So
no, yeah, I agree with this in particular. I'm really curious that Marlins have a pretty mixed history against Bryce Elder. I know that he's had a couple of really awesome games against them, but other times he's kind of shown himself his true colors in terms of being a guy that can be very hittable and has some limitations in terms of both his velo and just the ability to miss barrels. He's somebody that's very vulnerable to getting hit hard when things are not going his way. This is a Braves team that their pitching depth has been absolutely destroyed by injuries to this point. Like, this is not their ideal rotation, but they are down Spencer Schwellenbach for the foreseeable future. They are down a couple other guys as well. I like, they're real depth starters, I guess. Joey Wentz is a guy that tore his ACL in spring training, and then he's out for the year. And Spencer Strider. I mean, it's amazing how Strider has kind of faded from being one of the faces of this team and one of the reasons why they look so fearsome for years to come. Strider is out himself, I think, with a lower body injury to this point. He'll be back as the season progresses. It's either a lower body or it's oblique, but yeah, the fact that they're missing Strider, though, that's a guy that has as much upside as any starter in the game when he's on, but he's been in the wilderness the last couple of years because of these injuries that he's had that have really impacted him. So yeah, this is a Braves team that got off to that terrible start last year. And then this year, I think a lot of people thought they'd kind of be in that same camp just because of all these injuries that are simultaneously piling on top of each other. And yet they find themselves in first place in this division right now. And I'll just bring that up because as bad as this past weekend went for the Marlins are in second place in the National League East right now. Like if they win this series, then they're I think they have to sweep the series. If they sweep the series, then they're going to have sole possession of first place. We know that's not going to happen. Nobody's going to predict the Marlins to sweep the Braves in Atlanta, and they shouldn't. But even if they, they're right there, despite the struggles they've had over the last week and a half, just because of the good start they got off to previously, and just because really nobody in this division is smooth sailing. The Braves are doing as best as they can, and this is a team that definitely has some warts to them, especially if they continue to suffer from the injury bug as much as they have, entering the season and so far these first couple weeks.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough series. How much closer or farther from the Braves will the Marlins be when this series is over? I'll hit it for prediction time. Go ahead, Eli.
This is prediction time.
That's my prediction, but who knows?
All right, so 3-game series ending a long road trip for the Marlins before finally getting a day off on Thursday. Prediction time. How many games will the Marlins win and who will be the series MVP? I will hit it first and then end off with you, Eli. I will go that I just don't know. But I'm still not all the way confident that he is going to do what he did last time every time out. And then Chris Paddock also has been trending upward, but the quality of stuff against this lineup I think will struggle. So I think the Marlins will struggle to win a game, but I will give them one game. I will say that the Marlins lose the series 2 out of 3, and we just got to say it. We noted it. Acuna kills the Marlins. Acuna is going to be the MVP. Mr. Sussman, end it off.
Yes, my turn. I want to direct people's attention, though, to this QR code that we have. That goes to our prediction time leaderboard on our website. Try it out just to make sure that works, because that's a nice fancy addition to our presentation there. I'll go with a surprise here. I'll have the Marlins actually winning this series 2 out of 3 in Atlanta.
Ooh,
yeah, that is highly unusual, something that hasn't happened much at all over the last decade whatsoever. I think things are all right now. This is a Braves team that is beatable at the moment. And yeah, I'm looking at Yuri. We didn't really mention Yuri over the course of the show, and that's a guy that he's got to step up. So much of this Marlins season, they put so much responsibility on his plate with the trades they made in the offseason. They expected him to rise up and be a solid number 2 in this rotation, if not challenge Sandy for that ace role on this team. He has that kind of potential. He has not shown it so far this season. And he's a guy that when he is on, there's really not much an opponent can do about it. He's had some bad starts against the Braves in his career, and I think he's due. I think he's due for just having a day where his fastball shows up and takes control of the game from the very beginning. So I'll have the Marlins winning 2 out of 3, Yuri dominating on his way to MVP honors, and the Marlins leaving town with a winning record back to 10-9 once they come back home to Miami.
Definitely would be nice. The optimistic take from Eli. We like it. All right. So a smaller crowd tonight, but recapped a tough one. So I don't blame them for wanting to miss this one. Forget about this one. Hopefully go to Atlanta, come out feeling good, as Eli noted. But that's our show for today. Fish on First live on the Foul Territory Network, presented by Jet Ski Rentals of South Florida. We'll be back with you guys again on Wednesday night, late night, probably Wednesday night, probably 9-10 o'clock. We're looking at post series, hopefully honoring Eli's prediction and coming out with a series win, but I don't think so, but we'll see what happens. That's it for tonight. We'll be back with you guys again on Wednesday. See what happens in between. We'll be there to cover it all. We'll have recaps every day from down here in South Florida, and we'll continue to ride this roller coaster with a very interesting Marlins team. That's what we got for tonight. See you guys next time on the show. Go Fish.